Hi guys, welcome to another video. This video we're going to be looking at Zwift team time trialing and specifically how to race efficiently as a team, reduce those times and get faster, and just some of those tips and tricks that we should be looking at. I'm going to already assume you know about start delays and how to get into the pen, etc. But first of all, just a quick word from this video's sponsor. Provision produce and provide bespoke cycling clothing for indoor and outdoor cycling. They have recently produced kit for a number of Zwift racing teams as well as real life clubs and teams across Europe. Visit provisionclothing.com. Alright, so before you even get to the pen, either as a DS, a team captain or a team member, you need to have two things. You need to have an understanding of the course. Is it a rolling course, a flat course? And then secondly, you need to have an understanding of your teammates and the riders around you, both their weight and their power and their ability as riders as well, because this will determine who's going to take long pulls, who's going to take short pulls. In some cases, they might not take any pulls at all and you just use them as draftable riders. I guess it's a little bit easier on a Tuesday night because typically you'll be riding with your teammates in the same category. Thursday's a little bit different because you can have multiple categories in the same team, so it takes a bit more planning. Now, I like to use a document that was developed by Paul Fitzpatrick. He's one of the Zwift DSs there. Now, it's a really fantastic document. I've left a link in the description below. You put your rider's weight, you put your rider's FTP values there, and it will calculate their power requirements and their savings per position in that team time trial line as well. So it's well worth checking that out. Now, it's important to say here, pull spreadsheet is quite in depth and detailed, but it doesn't take too long to fill out. But if you just want a basic rule of thumb, I would say do 30 to 40 second pulls at around about 120% of your FTP on a typical Zwift team time trial. So you know your course, you know your riders, and now it's time to formulate a plan. Are you going to select a rider to take you from that start and get the pace up there? For example, RGV, that rolling section, we will typically take one rider to drive us all the way through that section rather than try and make a change. These little things you can think about. Maybe you're going to utilize some of the weaker riders just as draftable vehicles, for example, to put them second and third wheel for the whole race, not take any pulls, giving the other riders who are taking the pulls a greater draft and saving sat behind those two riders. Something to think about and consider for the makeup of your team. Alright, so you and your teammates are in the start pen, the flag has dropped, and now we've just got to wait for our allotted start time. Now get yourself into the pairing screen here. That your avatar will not move, but you can keep your legs moving around and stay nice and warm. There's two options though when it comes to your actual start time. Typically, what you can do is just escape that pairing screen once all the values have gone to 0 and sit in that pen for 20 to 30 seconds before your actual start time. The advanced technique, if using a gaming PC like myself, is press A to get yourself into the pairing screen first of all, and then when you hit escape, your avatar will launch at your current power. It is worth noting that you need all your teammates to be on the same technique, because there's nothing worse than seeing one rider, one teammate go up the road at 400 watts while all your other teammates are ramping up 10 seconds behind. So make sure you and your teammates use the same technique when it comes to leaving the pen. Alright, so you've got all riders out of the pen. Hopefully you've gathered everyone together within the first 10 seconds. I will typically have one rider here to drive for that first minute, just to make sure we get that speed and momentum up there and just get one rider to do that job. Now we can start to think about changes, and one of the techniques we can think about is either the sync sprint or the stop sprint technique. So let's have a look at that in a bit more detail. Okay, so in terms of making these rider changes, we're going to look at the sync and sprint technique. So we're trying to maintain the speed and momentum at the front whilst allowing that front rider to drift all the way to the back of the group and take their recovery. So with about 5 seconds before the change, the next rider to take their pull needs to be up in their pace, up in their power to get that speed up there. At some point then, the front rider will peel off the front, drift all the way to the back by taking their power almost to 0, and when they're shoulder to shoulder with that last rider, then a little sprint to get back into the draft and on the back of that group. So in most cases, a single line is much more efficient than a blob, and lots of people like GP Llama and Zwift Insider have lots of numbers and data to validate. But in terms of where a blob is useful is in terms of more rolling courses up and down and utilizing the momentum that comes with heavier riders going down and lighter riders going up to your advantage and maximize the speed. So the final two things I want to mention is about communication and practice. Communication is essential. Quite often you either DS, if you're not lucky enough to have a DS, either your team captain or one of the stronger riders will be making most of the calls. But it's important to have communication across all riders. Weaker riders, strong riders, if anyone's getting off the front, it's really important to shout up and you need to make a decision. A captain needs to make a decision whether to push on depending on where you are in the event or to ease back and utilize that rider for draft only purposes. The other thing I would say is practice, practice, practice. It's invaluable that you get out there on the course, if not on other courses before, to practice these techniques and really hone your team time trialing technique. So just in summary, those 5 tips. Again, do your planning in advance, both of the route and the riders that you'll be riding with. Use that pairing screen for warming up, but also maybe you want to try the A escape for that race start and that race launch. Try the sink and sprint technique for your changes, and don't forget to use specific riders for specific jobs, whether that's on the rowing sections, the climbs, or maybe just for drafting. And if you're not lucky enough to have a DS, then communication is key and you need to be talking to your teammates on a constant basis. So I hope you found some of those tips and ideas useful, and let me know how you get on in your next team time trial. Again, I've left links to those documents below in the description, so please take a look at those, and I'll see you soon for more Zwifting and cycling tips.